Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Smarter Campus Podcast, where we are working on changing education one conversation at a time. Today, we are joined with Dr. Manish Malik, a multi-award winning educator and a thought leader in the generative AI and engineering education space. He serves as a faculty director of the learning and teaching at Canterbury Christ Church and University and a visiting professor at McGill University. Thank you so much for being here today. If you could kind of just give the viewers another little intro of yourself, I think everyone would appreciate that, and we can get into it.
Yes, so thank you for having me here today. Zach, it's an honor. I have been working in higher education in the UK for the last 22 plus years. And along the journey, I have always had something going on the side with technology. It's been the whole time when Twitter was around initially, and starting off from that point to then going on to developing my own systems, which I have been using within my teaching and learning and my colleagues in my university previous to this one at University of Portsmouth. We built things like audience response system. And for my doctoral study, I designed something to then actually collect data on that, and that was called as computer orchestrated group learning environment. So there's no AI involved, but it's just a little bit of statistics and learning analytics, if you like, but very, very basic, but mainly the intelligence is outside that machine. So yeah, I've been studying technology very quite closely with different lenses, be it critical, be it more pragmatic. And more recently, I've been working here in Canterbury for the last 1.5 years. Here, I've focused my energy into bringing up to speed colleagues in the area of generative AI and basically have a whole intelligence framework which allows people to exercise their agency in front of something which is trying to claim the agency, right? So you hear about agents all around today, but I'm saying let 2025 be the year of agency, not agents. And the
Huh.
agency is with you.
I like that. Yeah, because I think there's so many people that are talking about 2025 is going to be the year of the agents, and we're definitely going to dive into that. So the first question I asked everybody is like, how'd you get into the AI stuff? You were a tech leader before this, so it was probably seamless, but I'd love to hear the story about how you like discovered AI.
Well, how I discovered AI. Okay, well, I was teaching in Portsmouth, and I asked it a question for my own doctoral thesis. When it came out in November, first thing, okay, I've got to try it because I always try new things in technology. And this blew my mind. In 6 seconds, it summarized my whole thesis and actually corrected me because I asked it a wrong question. I said, damn it, why did I do that? I asked the wrong question and yeah, it corrected me. And I think the text was actually from my thesis itself. So that was a bit unnerving, but there you go. It didn't just draw me since. And then I've been introducing it in my teaching when I was there. And then gradually I run these kind of sessions, which are for the whole of South of England, where I'm allowing people to come in and ask questions about different things. It's just a friendly forum
Yeah.
for technology, and we did a session on AI assessment, wherein a company came in and talked about things. And before that, I ran a summary of what I conversed with ChatGPT in 2022. This was January 23. And all the things that we're hearing today about critical, skills for students, what are the problems with AI and not all of those questions actually asked ChatGPT right at the beginning. And the conversation hasn't quite drastically moved on since then. So it was capable even then to predict so many of the problems, so many of the solutions that are there. So I'm quite impressed in that sense with it from that point on. And yeah, so and then I never stopped basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an awesome story. So I kind of want to dive back into what you said earlier. Like everyone right now is saying 2025 is going to be the year of the agent, right? you said it's going to be the year of agency. Like, could you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so obviously there are many different versions of ChatGPT. Once you got the first, you got used to 4.0, they came up with oh 01. And when you try to prompt oh 01, you almost don't need prompting skills. You need more of a, here's a brief. Can you do that for me? Then it sort of starts to become agent, but you lose something in the process. You see, if you're giving a task to some machine to do, it will do it according to its own thoughts or processes that it has discovered in its various tree of thought or whatever they're using inside to work out, then you lose that control over how you want things done, right?
Yeah.
So with if you step back a bit for O, it still allows you to do things the way you want. So I envisaged this generative AI tool as a mind, pretty much a connection of lots of concepts which are available to you to invoke through a prompt. But it is very much like you use your own brain from my perspective. If I'm going to do a particular task, I think about things in a certain order, a certain way. I may use certain lenses, and that's where the framework kind of allows me to replicate my thinking onto this brain. So I offload. So cognitive offloading for me means exactly that, where you take a process that you would have done it in your own brain, but you tell exactly step by step how to do it to this machine, and then it does it in front of you. And I've seen, when I'm training, I've trained about 200 staff here within the institution, but outside as well. And I see people smile going from year to year when they see those things happening in front of their eyes. So, and that's because they would have had to do that work. So that's the
Yeah.
agency that I'm saying. You make it do what you want it to do rather than accept what it's giving you. Because what it is giving you, you may not have full control, you may not like it, and yeah, just use it as a cognitive outsourcing, offloading tool,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean by agency.
Well, I would love, I mean, I think what you're doing is something that people are trying to do all over the world. Like, how do you teach that cognitive offloading to where you can get that ear to ear smile, right? For people to understand it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think first thing you've got to realize is that this tool has got access to so much knowledge which you don't have. So what you want to do for that offloading to really work is you've got to have almost like a mirror image of your knowledge in front of you in the screen. If you see anything different or something that you don't want to work with, you know, you want to cut that out. Because if you're offloading your own, processing into something else, the knowledge structure that it's going to rely on needs to be identical to yours. So what I do is what I start with something I termed as mind surfing. So you ask generative AI, what does it know about a particular topic, right? So it gives you 20 things as usual. And out of those 20 things, you might know five, you might know 21st that it didn't give. Whatever that is, that mix, you clear that mix into one simple set of things that you know or you want to work with. And I call that mind mending. You instruct the machine to become identical to what you know. So there's, you're in alignment, if you like, on the topics at least. Yeah.
Okay.
And then using the terminology it has used, you then prod further down, basically. So that's mind surfing. You're using its own way of representing things to then going into the depth of something that you want to explore together. And yeah, so I don't give it my own words. I just extract, if you like, content based off its own words, because I know the maths inside is reliant on not on my words but its own words.
Yeah.
So it enhances the loyalty, if you like, the fidelity of those prompts, and gives you a much less hallucinated output, because then you're really surfing the nodes, if you like, in the brain, in the mind. You've triggered one node. It says, okay, I know this much about this node. There are some smaller nodes which are represented as text. I take the text and I play with that. That's for me is mind surfing.
So you kind of get on like the same level, right, as the AI. That's super cool.
Absolutely.
I've never heard that. That's awesome. I bet that would be I bet a lot of people that are going to listen to this will use that. And I might, do you have any like write-ups of that? I would love to
What's
read those. Yeah.
Oh, the write-up, yeah. So I am in the process of producing a paper in which I've collected data from the various people that I have trained. The highlights of that I can tell you. The people, as I said, this year-to-year smile is a constant. You know, when I
Yeah.
use my terminology of mind surfing, mind mending, mind bending, even I always get back a new term from or the same term from the audience back, which is mind blowing. So that's always the case. In terms of the review scores that I get from the people who've attended the training is about 4.5 on average out of 5. And if I ask them towards the end, let's say you're designing some multiple choice questions, right? So
Yeah.
I'll make them utilize their own method of creating, or if they don't know how to create, I'll give them my method of creating multiple choice questions or notes, which is nothing to do with AI at the moment. That is just pedagogic sort of approach. And through mind bending, I'll tell you what that is in a second. I'll get them to design those. And in the end, I ask them, are you willing to use those questions? 95% of the people that I have trained so far have given me a yes. And the one person or two people remaining, they have said that with a bit more mind mending, Manish, we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think what you're doing that's so different compared to other people is it's like you just got to get on the same level as this thing and then use it to offload cognitively. Like the things that you just didn't want, like that just took time, but you knew how to do. This is a great way to get people to see the value in it, right? I mean, I think that's what I'm hearing.
I mean, you can use it in a different way in terms of the path that you travel is that's your agency, right? You do things
Yeah,
your way,
yeah,
right? And you can make it do things your way, and you don't have to do it. Okay,
yeah,
and that is always better than being completely overwhelmed by how good it is, and in that good somewhere hides the rubbish, which you're not being critical about. So from an expert point of view, I'd rather it do the things that I do the way I do, and therefore I control the quality, and I don't have you know something which is full of rubbish, if you like, or
yeah.
hallucinations. So that's why I go about using its terminology, but to my goal. Okay. And you could do something else. You could then say, okay, I want to walk the uncharted path, which I don't know anything about, but I'm going to be extra careful at that point, and I'm going to critically evaluate everything that it tells me. I and that's the path when mind bending it comes in, basically,
Well, that's awesome.
in
I
my
mean, do you want
framework.
to dive into mind bending? I mean, I think you might as well just
So
go through
I
the whole
mean,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, so if I was to say, there are different dots in the generative AI mind, each dot representing different sort of subject area, content area, and each prompt that you hit the tool with, it lights up one of those points. But if
Yep.
you are gonna do mind bending, you're bringing two dots closer to each other, and you're
Ah,
looking at one through the lens of the other.
okay.
you know so
Yeah.
that for me is mind bending, and I could use the dots that I'm used to. I could use pedagogy and I don't know telecommunications to create questions on telecommunications which are pedagogically sound. But what if I wanted to make entertaining content which is inspired by Hollywood style films, and I want people to get engaged with that content? Then I would use those nodes that may be present inside the brain. So I'll obviously first try and understand whether it is present or not, and play with that alone separately. And then when I know a few things about it, then I can start to mind bend and be creative with it. So yeah.
Well, I learned something today. That's really cool. I'm gonna definitely go try that literally immediately after this. But next question I have is you work with people in education and the workforce, right? So the question is, how do you think educators can use AI to better bridge the gap between, say, higher education and what we're preparing our students for as in the workforce?
Yeah, I think the workforce is changing, of course. Future of work. If you listen to the big corporates, they are saying, well, the agents are going to do the work, and you're perhaps going to be a co type person as opposed to be a T type person. So you don't not going to specialize in one thing. You may have specializations or sort of idea about 10 things, and then the agents are working for you, and you're just orchestrating their work. Okay, so if that is true, if that's to come true, I think what I'm saying right now in 2025, the agency bit, that you really need to have agency. Uh, that then expands from having agency in one field of area to having agency in a little bit more, so that you can understand, you know, the outputs coming back from multiple agents, because they will be there. I'm not saying they won't be there. So you really have to prepare students for that kind of eventuality, if you like. And when they come into a university, they obviously wanting to become an engineer in electronics or mechanical or something, very focused. Whereas in future, you may have general engineering playing a bigger part in the employment sort of industry, where people are aware of the concepts. We all want to optimize, we all want to save money, we all want to be sustainable, we all want to be inclusive, we all want to build systems that are inclusive. So those things are going to lay a good foundation, good solid foundation for our future graduates.
Yeah.
And the technical elements, obviously, people will have the ability to rely a little bit on learning on the go, if you like. So I've heard this phrase being mentioned quite a bit, learning quotient. So, the ability to learn things on the go and quickly, that's very much possible with this tool. I always ask and I always mind surf on things which I don't know about. I say, what is there to learn about X?
Yeah.
And I say, from the point of view of Y, i.e., a first year student. So that's the very simple mind surfing prompt I give you. If you replace the X and the Y with a subject and a person's level, you know,
Anything.
that's your journey on to learn. Yeah.
That's what's so wild to me is that you can literally learn anything with that stuff. Uh, so you mentioned that you've been exploring this for the past few years now. What tools, like what's in the AI tool belt that do you use?
No, I'm not very adventurous when it comes to tools. I'll
Yeah.
use ChatGPT most of the time.
Yep.
I tried Gemini. It didn't quite give me as much for the money that I was paying, so I've canceled that one, unfortunately. Although I've been a Google person for a very, very long time, and yeah. So, but this I just wanted to pay one tool to see the potential, and I quite like the perplexity tool, which basically gives you grounded answers to my questions. So, which is different in its yeah. And then within ChatGPT, you've got the coding tool, which is quite good. Um, and yeah, I mean, I use Claude for sometimes, but not that much, because all my needs, I'm literally going in to understand it, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to collaborate with one, not too many. I'm just want to, give myself too much trouble in terms of personalities of AIs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just want one collaborator, if you like. I just want one thing to be co-intelligent with me,
Yeah.
rather than too many. I just can't, yeah, that's where I am on that.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is here in the States, I mean, there is a lot of fear around the use of AI in the classroom. And like one, I'm curious how that is in your institution in the UK. And then second, like how you kind of explain that this is necessary and there should be less fear around it to educators.
I wouldn't say there's fear. People once they've gone through, let's say, my sessions, they understand that this tool has potential. Before that, maybe they are prompting it, multiple things in one single thread, let's say, for example, and getting some wrong answers. And so you almost need to see the potential of this tool to be able to extract good stuff out of it. And once you know that, then your obvious next question is, well, if the students know it, they're going to be benefiting from it, one. But also then the fear element perhaps comes in at the point where you're worrying about people or students using it for the wrong use, if you like, or cheating, if you like. So
Yeah.
that does come in oftentimes in my discussions with my colleagues. Um, but I guess that's down to us to have a range of assessment artifacts, if you like, some which are in person, exams, vivas, things where these tools aren't available. And yet the person's agency, again, the student's agency for me is quite important. So the traditional, verifying your sources, using them correctly, those are the things which you would really want your students to learn in class with you. So let's say you ask the question to ChatGPT or any other tools. So explain to me what is multipath in wireless communications. It comes up with some wrong physics, basically, right? I
Yeah.
ask it in my students, and the students, their response is, "Oh, it's 80% correct, Manish. How much marks will you give me?" I said, "Well, if I see that mistake in your answer, I probably won't give you any mark because that's the fundamental physics that it's mentioning, which is incorrect. So you won't get much marks. Will I pass? Well, maybe I'll pass, but it's not going to be, a very high mark from me, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's the kind of things I tell colleagues that if you are bringing this into the classroom, you get students interested in the mistakes that it makes, and that might trigger learning. You really need to tell the students that um, you're you are in the driving seat here. You really need to verify the information, and pointing them back to the sources is the best way to go forward in that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Gonna wrap, coming up on the end of the time here, but another question I have here is how do you stay up to date with all of the crazy changes and updates in the AI space every
Yeah.
day?
That's how do you got LinkedIn network, basically people who you follow, people follow you, you're sharing things. And I always like to have a conversation. That I guess that's how I came in contact with yourself.
Yeah.
I always look at a message and see how it sits with me, always, because that is one way I can develop my thinking. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to feel too overwhelmed with the pace of it. As long as you're having, as you say, one conversation at a time. You
Yeah.
can't understand everything that's there.
Yeah.
So I look at those conversations and I see if I agree with them, disagree with them. Do I want to comment on it? Do I want to let it go because I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole in this conversation with other people. So I do that and I decide what I want to talk with and who I want to talk with and what and I kind of test my ideas with people in that way. And that keeps me satisfied. I don't get overwhelmed, although it is quite, there are things that if you start to worry about, oh, you're missing out, yeah, you will be, in that way. But take it calmly, I think is my advice to people who are.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to tell you that I have noticed is I've been having conversations with experts like yourself from all over the world for the last like month, really, is what I would say. And the number one thing that everyone has in common that's doing well with this stuff is that they talk with their students about it in class. So, like you mentioned that you do that. I would love if you kind of dove into how you bring the students into the conversation.
So one thing I did to get that going because I knew that this thing is faulty. It has problems, hallucination. I don't want my students to learn the wrong things. However, every wrong learning or every misconception in an academics book, that's what put the ear to ear smile. Every misconception,
Yeah.
right? When you get hold of it, when you know the student is going to make that mistake, your role becomes evident. You know what your role is. You
Yeah.
know that the student is struggling with something, and now you can come in and help. Okay, so I have a innovative sort of exam revision tool which I created back in 2007 as part of my master's study. I said, well, let's do a project of research. I'll create a Google document in which I post 20, 30 of my past exam questions on my module and get the students to solve it, not individually, because exams are quite stressful individually. They're quite isolating. So I
Yeah.
said, well, let's do it collaboratively, guys. This is your platform. You come in, you answer your questions in different rows. So for each question, you end up with engineering with like 4 or 5 answers, and that covers the ground in terms of the variety that some calculations might go through. So you get 5 correct answers or 5 incorrect answers. So if that was my mechanism, you can imagine what I would have done when AI came. So I said, instead of the Google Doc, I gave them a Google form. And I said, well, you ask Google, you complete this question in a Google form way, and then the machine will send you feedback, right? So what I
Yeah.
was doing after those, Google Doc got populated, I was going to go maybe 3 times before the exam and I say, I'll give you comments on those multiple answers, and I'll help you see the elephant as an elephant rather than a pillar or a wall or a rope or a snake or whatever. Each one of you have a view of the subject, right? But
Yep.
I'll make you talk to each other, make you share that knowledge with each other, and I'll come in and smooth the edges if you like. And I'll not give you the answer, I'll never give you the answer. You have to work it out amongst yourselves. You are in that zone where you are going to revise for the exam. So the assessment becomes for learning as opposed to off learning. Exams
Yeah.
tend to be assessment of learning. So I converted that long time ago, and then I spread that into my school with other colleagues. So that was going well, and then came along AI, and I said, well, let's do this with AI. And so they've done this before coming to the class. They would have done those questions using the AI. They would have got the feedback as well from AI, and that feedback that they have posted, you don't understand it or you understand doesn't matter. You post on that same document. Now it's easy to externalize what you got from a bot onto a Google document, and then we will look at those in the class. So that way you bring in the diverse answers from the students, but also from AI. And you can start to do the exact same thing in class within 20 minutes, you're done. Yeah, that's how
It's
I would
awesome.
introduce.
It's just cool. It's like the funny thing is yesterday I had a conversation with the leader in Australia and they said the exact same thing, that the first thing they did was talk with their students about it. And it's just cool to see that that's how the thought leaders are kind of going about doing it. So the last question I have, I asked this to everyone. It's kind of disregarding education, and if you don't have an answer, it's totally all good. What's your favorite way to use AI outside of education? Like I like to use it for cooking all the time, and I can tell you how I use it, but I'm just curious. It's kind of a fun little,
Yeah, well, I used it once for our planning our holiday trip.
yeah,
It was okay. It didn't, we sat down as a family. We said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And so on and so forth. We defined, we prescribed, these are the things we want to do. Give us a itinerary. It did give a quite useful one. Um, I think as things happen when you are there, you forget about the
yeah,
output from the GenAI because it's not readily available when you're out and about, and therefore, yeah. But I think if that improved in terms of, yeah, that is why I would use it, because when you're out on a holiday, you want, the last thing you want is you want the stress of thinking as to where is this, what is that, how do I find this, how do I find that. So I would really, yeah, enjoy using it there because it gives me 5 answers, let's say, and I will just pick one. That's it.
yeah. Well, Thank you so much for being here today. I learned something. I guarantee you the people listening to this will learn something. And I really appreciate if you have any lasting thoughts, like any advice to teachers jumping into AI, we can end with that.
Okay. Well, one thing I do want to say is that, you hear about super intelligence coming, and
Hmm.
I fear that the super intelligence might never come, but it might just make people override and a little bit dumber because of that. And that then this thing becomes more powerful than us, and then they make a claim that this is super intelligence. It's not. For me, the agency is still with you, and as long as you're exercising your own brain critically, bingo, that's it.
Well, I think that's perfect to wrap up on. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone listening, for listening, and I will see you next week.